You've got questions about fitness, nutrition, mindset, health as a whole, and I'm here to help answer them. From fat loss and strength training to post-rehab and building a truly sustainable approach to wellness, my goal is to help you build a strong, healthy body and mind that actually lasts. I'm Ray Cook, and if you're ready for practical, no-fluff guidance that you can use right away, you're in the right place. So let's dive in. We have not started the podcast thing because there's a lot of shit going down, and it's too crazy, and it's a lot going down, and it's too busy, so we haven't done it yet. So bear with us. But that is the plan. Once that's there, then I could structure things. Then I could think. But at the very least, I got shelving up above the computer. I got book shelving over here. And I got my diploma up there now. So that's cool. I actually have my diploma somewhere. That's neat. Cool. Yes, please, podcast. I am so hard. That was the worst statement I could have possibly ever made. I read your comment and made the worst response. I am so challenged to get the podcast up and running. That was horrendous. I can't edit that, Jen. I can edit that. I'm not gonna edit that because that was funny as hell. Welcome to Fridays, right? Oh my God. I was gonna say I need more coffee, but here we go. I should not read comments as I'm talking because that was dangerous. That was dangerous. Anyhow, fill me in. How are you guys holding up? I'm hoping you got a good laugh out of that. That was a bit of a slip. Jeez Louise. What's the best way to get back into exercise after taking time off? And then it elaborates. Very common after holidays, illness, burnout, or inconsistent routines. People are worried about soreness, injury, and motivation. Subtext, how do I restart without hating it? I like that it gave more elaboration. That's kind of cool. So it actually allows for context. Because usually, that's gives me some direction. Cool. This is wild. This thing's crazy to look at and ask questions of. Kind of neat. Morning, Dave. Oh, I think Jen must have gotten taken back into her doc appointment. She just bailed out. She must have taken back. Well, if she's seeing this in the replay, I hope you have a great doctor's appointment, Jen. All right. So like I said, Q&A Friday. This question, again, what's the best way to get back into exercise after taking time off? I think that that's a valid question for all of us because whether or not you're coming back from a vacation, an injury, a sickness, something else, those things are all super beneficial. Oh, hold on, Dave. Motivation for me is my tank that always needs filling. Motivation for me is my tank that always needs filling. Can you elaborate on that? I'm sorry. I don't fully understand what you mean. I might be missing something. I don't know. Fill me in. Thanks for the comment, though. I'm going to figure out what you're talking about. So, when it comes back to taking time off or getting back into exercise after taking time off, something that we've talked about a number of times is, and by the way, real quick, I'm just going to switch my view so I don't see comments immediately, just because I'm not ever going to finish the train of thought if I do that. When it comes to getting back into it, something we talked about a number of times is you need to pace yourself and grade yourself back into it gradually. So if you just started out, and I'll reframe that actually a little bit, because for all of you guys, you have been doing your workouts consistently for more than 3 months going into the new year. So that kind of flies off the table. If you've been working out for a bit and then the holidays hit, you get sick, you take some time away, or you maybe get hit by curveballs and you have to forcibly take some time away. What's the best way to start getting back into stuff? Gradually. But let's say it's like you do take a gradual approach, but you think you can do more in that day. In that perspective, I think it's really important to do allow yourself to push it a bit, but also recognize that what you're feeling in that moment isn't entirely true because your body's probably not caught up to what you're actually wanting it to be at. Meaning, if you go into your workout and you have a lower expectation or assumption of what you're going to be able to do, so you grade it down a bit. You do that graded down version, and by the end of it, you're like, I could definitely do more than this. Well, I do think it's important. Push yourself a little bit, but still grade that push a little bit. Because sometimes we will underestimate what we're truly capable of doing, but then we also tend to forget what can lead out after we give it all we've got, or we go really hard in the workout, meaning the level of soreness that you might achieve at that point could be pretty substantial. Is that bad? Not necessarily. So if you're okay with allowing or incurring a lot extra soreness in that day or in that week, okay, just so long as none of this is pushing towards the risk of injury. So let's look at a structure perspective in that thought. If you're looking at a 5-day week and you plan on doing let's just hypothetically say 3 days of workouts. Hypothetically, again. The last thing I would ever recommend, whether or not you're, maybe if you're really skilled and you know what you're doing with the exercises, you know what you're doing with your structure and how to push your intensity, this response is wrong, straight up. What I would most of the time recommend is not doing back to back days of workouts. You can do a workout and a walk, or workout and conditioning, and then another workout and mobility and a workout, blah, blah, blah. You could do that fine. Just don't do a workout. Again, that statement can 100% be caveated if you've been doing this and you know how to structure it in a way that balances it and does not push intensity too far too often. But if you're just coming back into workouts and you want to go for 3 days a week or whatever, buffer yourself, downgrade it a little bit, push it at the end if you feel like you're able to, but assume you're going to incur a little bit extra soreness in that workout coming back into things, and that's okay. Just know it will exist. There was another part to that question I wanted to go through because I might not dive into the whole thing because this is more off the cuff stuff. Other thing too is when it comes to how hard you push, sometimes we talk about intensity scaling, like RPE stuff, or going off of percentages of overall ability to lift, like a maximum amount of weight, like a percentage of that maximum amount of weight. And those things are extremely important. It's more important to figure out in the immediate start of your workouts, how does stuff feel as I'm going through it physically? Not feel mentally necessarily, but feel physically. Because a lot of the times, this could just be a me thing that I look into this too much, and that's fine. A lot of the times, I'll go into a workout, and if I'm too in my head about stuff, and I'm going through an exercise, and I feel just not what I'm used to feeling, I'll sandbag it. Meaning, like, I won't give what I feel like I can really do or what I know I can really do because I'm basing off of how I feel in that moment. But at the same token, if you're noticing something literally off in how you're lifting, let's say you're doing a squat, for example, and your knees hurt more than usual, or your knees feel different than usual, that is a very important indicator to go off of. But let's say on the same token, you're doing squats and you feel like you're out of breath abnormally. It's important to pay attention to, absolutely, but that might just be a short-term thing. So retest it in the next set. All this comes back to retesting, but in the same breath, you got to make sure that you're not also sandbagging yourself left and right, because that is easy to do. So give it a little bit on that one, because when it comes to re-entering back into workouts and stuff, it can be easy to be really, really, really in your head. More elaboration, like I'm going to open up the comments again because there might be more that sparks my thoughts and I might have tangented more than I meant to. So let me know. Your guys' responses and comments to these things is really helpful for me, because sometimes like I'll respond and then I'll tangent and I'll forget to come back to my original statement, and that's a me thing, but having your guys' comments helps. So let's see. Dave, you elaborate on your motivation piece. In other words, one of my biggest hurdles is motivation for you. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. Jen, I hear you, Dave. I've had a horrible time getting going again. Was getting it, then blah. So paragraph, getting over the wall is the worst. Okay, so maybe then we just transition to motivation a little bit from where that conversation was before. So Dave, Jen, either one of you, when it comes to the motivation stuff, what is your biggest concern with that being a hurdle? With motivation being a big hurdle? Or am I misinterpreting that? Let me know. I'm going to give it a second because I want you guys to respond at whatever pace you're comfortable with. And if you don't respond, that's cool. Like, you're all busy. You're all working. So it's always hard with these conversations because it's delayed. And it's just challenging that way. We'll see. Or at least doing it in this format. We'll see. Motivation for me is the tank that always needs filling. In other words, one of the biggest hurdles, motivation. How about time getting going again? So we talked, I'll kind of go into it without having to wait too long because I think you guys are busy and you won't respond for a while. I was wrong. Maybe I'll have to chat in person. Hard to explain. That's fair. And that's the hard piece with some of these is it really is like a back and forth type of conversation where I can make up what might be true based off of the response, but it isn't really what you're saying. So that's why it's like I have a hard time with that one, because like my immediate, and I'll give you context to this, my immediate response to my motivation's low and it's one of my biggest hurdles is almost always going to rely on motivation is very fickle, and 90% of the time, not a literal 90%, but a lot of the time, it won't be there. So what do we do when we don't have motivation is the question, like in my eyes. So it leads into like finding ways to get extra motivation or to build in that discipline to want to do it, or even when you don't want to do it, to just do it. A lot of the times what I've heard over the years is action breeds motivation, because the action gives you a form of a result, and seeing that result thereby gives you a little bump in motivation. So like if the goal is truly motivation, you have to take action to see some level of result to get a continued level of motivation. But it's also important to view motivation from two standpoints. Motivation can either be extrinsic or intrinsic. If I have extrinsic motivation, that's me giving you a reward, that's me giving you kudos, that's me giving you stuff, or somebody else giving you stuff to say, hey, good job. That's external motivation. Intrinsic or internal motivation is where somewhere inside of you, you have an understanding, a deep understanding of this is what I'm doing this for. This is why I'm making this an effort. This is why this is an important thing for me to do. And it's something only you can give yourself, and it comes from deep within yourself. That's the level of motivation we want. Not necessarily external or extrinsic, but internal or intrinsic motivation. That is the one that we want. The cool piece is we can involve a level of extrinsic motivation as well, sparingly. We just don't want to rely on that extrinsic motivation to keep driving us. But the same conversation still plays. Either or is fickle, because either way, some level of motivation will probably fade off. So it becomes really hard to have like this perfect interplay of like when, let's say, my intrinsic motivation dials down, my extrinsic motivation dials up. It's really hard to navigate that for majority of us. So that's why it's it's really important to circle back to, even when I don't want to do this thing, what's a level I'm okay with doing this at, so that I know I can keep working on this thing that I've said I want to do, so I can see the result to elicit a little bit more of a bump in motivation. So that's why I have a really tough time with that conversation without extra input from you guys in the moment, because like I can tangent off of this and go off of like all these different things that may be true and come up with all these hypotheticals, and none of the hypotheticals actually check out for what you're actually asking. So I hope that maybe that provided more context. You kind of hit it on it without specific. Yeah, there we go. I'll take it. But that's, yeah, I would say the grand message with motivation is it is okay on a multiple level concept or conversation to, one, lose motivation, perfectly okay. Two, have it just spike out of nowhere and all of a sudden you're motivated more than hell. Take advantage of that, by the way, because it's very seldom that it happens, but when it does, hit it. That's cool. Three, it's okay to have a mix of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Those things can commingle, just making sure that we don't rely on extrinsic motivation, because then the long-term focus point of staying consistent with anything flops. Because once extrinsic motivation's gone, you're cooked. You have to have an interplay of intrinsic motivation. And looking at purely intrinsic motivation, by the way, some of you may remember doing the wellness visions that we talked about and creating that like multiple sentence conversation of like, this is what I would love to see, or this is what I would like to aspire towards over the next blah, blah, blah period of time, or things that I would love to see in the future. That is the intrinsic motivation conversation. Then it allows us to pick and pull from that conversation or that sentence or paragraph or whatever to say, there's a reason why. This is the thing that's important for me. This is the stuff that I want to make sure I touch on. Because that's the stuff that's your fallback. When you lose motivation, the wellness vision is the carryout. It carries you through that thick storm of like, I don't know what I want. I don't know why I keep doing this. I don't have a reason to show up right now. That's why. Your wellness vision conversation, that sentence, that paragraph is literally your why, unless you built it out on a surface level conversation. That's why I try to ask more questions to dig out more of like, this is what's going on. This is why this is important to you. This is why you really want to do this. Like, that's the reason. Because when motivation's gone, that's your fallback. Go to that wellness vision. Put it somewhere. I've told several of you, put it on a sticky note on your door, put it on your windows, put it on your mirrors, put it on your phone, put it on your computer, put it on wherever, and review it, or at least see it once in the day, a couple times in the week. Go back to it as you need to, because that can be a good thing to just carry you through the thick storm of challenges. So that's kind of my I digress piece on that one. There's a lot that we can talk about on it, and there's a lot more that I would love to talk about on that one. Again, I get in my head and I'm in a tangent left and right with it. So having your guys' feedback input in the moment is usually really helpful for that conversation, because then I can redirect where I'm going with it to make sure it's valuable and helpful for you guys. Other times I lose where I'm going, to be completely honest, and then I just stop. So that's my spiel on that stuff. Like I said at the very beginning, we have that now apparently updated 20 list of questions from ChatGPT that we asked it. And so far, all 5 that we went over this morning, we didn't dive into all 5. We talked about all 5. Were good questions. So from this moment, what my thought is we'll go back to that list of 5 questions and we'll just start there. And each time that we do this, we'll pull one of those questions up, and it might lead to more questions after that from you guys, because it might spur in a different thought, which that's the whole point. The questions that we pull from ChatGPT are just to start the conversation, start the questions, start getting us all to think about different stuff. And then if more questions pop up in your guys' head or my head, we shift into those questions, because those ones are examples. They're helpful, but they're examples. Your guys' questions are what's going to fuel all of this. So I hope that's all helpful. If you have other thoughts, if you have other stuff you want to dive into, by all means, let me know. But happy Friday. The end of the week is here. I hope you guys enjoy yourselves. Take a load off this weekend. Breathe. We're only a week and 2 days into this year, and I've heard a lot of stuff going down from everybody. So it's cool. Breathe. You're doing amazing. And keep me posted if you guys need anything. But go have a fantastic weekend. You got this. Let's get after it. You got a question for the next Q&A? Drop it in the comments. If you want deeper support, consider subscribing or joining our coaching community where we host multiple live calls every week. The link's in the description. And if this helped you in any way, please share it with someone who's also working on their health too. Now remember to stay active, eat mindfully, think positive thoughts, and let's get after it.